After infidelity, I don't love him anymore. And so I had written and said, well, it's okay to be done with a relationship. And truthfully, it is. It is okay to be done with a relationship. But you responded, I don't want to be done. I just want to fall in love again and come to peace with his affair. I just can't, and I don't know how. Maybe it was worded incorrectly, but you'll never be at peace with the affair. And that's the hard truth. With choosing to stay after infidelity, that will never be something that brings you peace. It will always be probably a trigger. It does get better over time. I mean, think of it as like a death in the family. Over time, that does get better, but there's still that wound, and the wound never goes away. It's kind of like that book, The Body Keeps the Score. So this is why it's really important for them to be in recovery, because if they're not in recovery, they'll just continue to put your nervous system back in that vicious cycle of PTSD, and that's not okay. That's not safe to your health, and it is abusive. So that's going to be my first tip. There's so many variables in this, and I'm just trying to figure out how to answer it correctly. So I would recommend booking a call with me just in case I get this wrong, because gosh, there's just so many ways that this could go. But I'll just talk from my experience in this. My husband was willing to do the work, and he came to me and asked me for a second chance, and that required me, number one, forgiving him, which was extremely difficult. I've done TikToks on that before. I can do one again, but I had to go through a forgiveness process of letting it go. Not that I was going to shove it under a rug or ignore it. I just had to know that if I gave him a second chance, that the debt he had with me was unforgivable and it could never be repaid. It's the unpayable debt, so to speak. And so I knew that if I chose to give him a second chance, I was going to have to kind of wipe that slate clean and not hold this over his head. Otherwise, I'd seen people try to heal through infidelity and they never made it if they did that. So I chose, number one, to forgive, which gave us the opportunity to move forward. Two, I created boundaries, and he did my boundaries, and he started going to therapy. He actually did a lot of therapy, ladies. He was in SAA. He had a licensed therapist. We went and did a marriage retreat. We had ongoing marriage counseling. And then on top of that, he did a Bible study with a group of men. He had accountability partners. Like, we did a lot. And he was like, whatever it takes, I will do whatever it takes to fix this. And so he really, really put in the work. He had very minimal relapses. But over time, we were able to identify, like, I want to say small things that I just was not comfortable with. And then he would say, no problem, and stop those things. So that really helped me rebuild trust and intimacy with him. And I will say, the first year, I would tell him repeatedly, I am not in love with you. And I just knew during that year, I truly didn't want anyone else. I really wanted to be with him. I loved our family. I loved our kids. And he is and has always been the love of my life. But I was not willing to open my heart to him. And so that was something I really, really kind of kept guarded, and that was okay. I knew I needed to do that to protect myself in case he did fail and relapsed. But he didn't. And by the end of the year, I actually got scared. I was so scared because he had been so faithful, and so he had put so much effort and work. He read 120 books in 1 year. I mean, the man was on fire with trying to do whatever it took to win me back. And so I started around that time to get really scared and tell him, I started really questioning things at that point. Are you sure you're being faithful? Are you sure you're not going to ever cheat on me? Are you sure? Because I had such fear of realizing I was falling back in love with him. And that scared me because now my heart was attached. And he just reassured me through that whole time. I cried a lot during that time. And then around that time, I was able to identify that, you know what, I feel like I need a symbol. I need something that just symbolizes that we're going to start over again. Because if I really truly let the old marriage die and I choose to start a new marriage with you, I need some type of symbol of that. I can't just continue on with you with that. I just feel like I can't move past things without that. I was able to identify that with my therapist. And so I told him, I said, I think I want an emerald ring, because an emerald means a new beginning. And I'd like you to repropose to me on our anniversary. So I kind of mentioned that to him, and I did tell him along with that, like I was always planning like our things I wanted to do together, or any vacations we ever took, I always planned. And so I said to him, I was like, I would like you to plan a vacation for the two of us. It can just be a weekend getaway, but I would like that as well. And he did it. He surprised me, took me to Savannah, Georgia, which is where we were actually initially engaged. And he took me by the fountain and he got on one knee. He hired a photographer. He said some really wonderful, beautiful vows. Like, I guess I should say a proposal. He said a really beautiful proposal to me. Got down on one knee, and I said yes. And that for me, that yes, I did think about it, but that yes for me was like, I do want this. I want to be with this man. I see the work he's done, but he put so much effort to pursue me and win my heart back. And that took a lot of work for not just him, ladies. It took a lot of work for me too. So don't just put your man in therapy and hope that the whole relationship's going to heal. I hate to say it, but you have just as much work to do as he does, because the marriage was broken before this ever happened. There's so many things you both have to work on to become a team again and to break down those barriers. And you're not going to fall back in love with him if you do not do the work on yourself. You can't be codependent on him and him doing the work and looking for all your happiness to be fulfilled from him and his recovery to heal you. You can't do that. That will fail. That path fails. You have to do the work on yourself, heal your nervous system, heal your broken heart. And there's so many ways that happened for me. But ultimately, when we found trust, vulnerability, honesty, and I saw that he was fully committed and he lowered his defenses. He occasionally got defensive, but he would back down after he identified that, and he would say, no, I can't do that. I can't go back to old habits. We did so much work. I could just talk all day about it. But anyway, all those things caused me to fall back in love with him.